What do you do when you hear voices down the hall? What do you do when you see a shadow in your room? What can you say when you see eldritch lights in the sky? Do you have the strength to believe in the unbelievable? To embrace the impossible? To go beyond the beyond? Join my friend as we explore the dark corners of the cosmos. Welcome to the Beyond Paranormal Podcast. It's been about a week and a half since we did this last time, and I'm happy to talk to all of you again, and we're going to have a lot of fun this evening. For those who are just tuning in, because there are a lot of new listeners, the Beyond Paranormal Podcast is basically each week we delve into questions that are very important to us, like, are we alone in the universe, or specifically, what happens after death? I was a paranormal investigator. I investigated for about 10 years. I don't do it that often anymore, but I do consult on paranormal issues. So that's a little bit about me. This stuff drives me quite a bit. It's very important to me. And I've been fascinated with the paranormal since I was about 17 years old. I had my first true paranormal experience at 19 years old when I moved into a haunted house up in Montana. And we had all sorts of fun things going on over there. We would have doors opening and shutting. We'd have the dog locked in a room every single night. I once heard a woman scream. We smelled perfume. So yeah, that was the catalyst which helped me to become a paranormal investigator and then eventually to do this podcast. So like I said, we have a whole bunch of new listeners, and I want to thank every single one of you for checking me out. Please tell your friends about us if you like what you hear. And if you want to contact me, you can contact me anytime. And tell me what's up if you have any stories, or even if you want to be a guest. And that's what's coming up. We have some things that are pretty exciting that are going to be showing up in the future. Number one, I have a friend who also works with the paranormal, and she's got some great stories, and she's going to come up probably the next show. I also have some other things in the works that are going to propel this little podcast to the stars, but I can't talk about that yet until it's all situated. Yeah, we're becoming bigger, we're becoming better, and I want you all to listen, because really great things are going to happen this year. Really great things. And they will be very entertaining for you to listen to. But for today, since it's just me and I don't have any guests, I figured that a lot of people have always contacted me and asked, hey, Phil, how do you do ghost hunting? And I would tell them and I would give them some ideas. But instead of have like everyone just ask me how to get started, I thought I'd do a podcast on how do you get started ghost hunting. Okay, so this is what we are going to do tonight. So you want to be a ghost hunter. How do you get started? Okay, so the first thing you want to decide is if you want to start out alone or if you want to start out with people. If you want to find other investigators, and this is what I recommend because this is the path I took, there is a website called meetup.com, and just type in ghost chasers or ghost hunters in the search engine, put where you live, and all these different meetups will show up, meaning that people who have the same interests as you are creating meetups where they can meet. Now, ghost hunters, what we do often is that we will create meetups for newbies, for people just like you who want to get started. And these are usually free. I mean, sometimes they cost money, you know, but usually you can get started free. And real ghost hunters will take you out to a haunted location, and you can start investigating there. And usually most of us will be pretty nice to you if you tell me that you have not investigated before. We'll give you all the hints that we know, and we'll start training you as best as we can. And then you can see if you like it or not. So if you want to get started with actual investigators, then that's the way to go. Because all of my teams started off with, I created a paranormal meetup called the Salt Lake Area Paranormal Society. And at the height of its glory, it had over 500 members. Now, my main team, which was USEP, the Utah Society for Unexplained Phenomena, we met everyone through that meetup group. So through these meetup groups, you can actually meet people to start a real investigation group, if that's what you want to do. But also, it's just a lot of fun, and there's not much hassle. You don't have to worry about going into somebody's house and showing the etiquette that you need to do that. You can just go out with a bunch of people who probably haven't investigated a lot, and have a lot of fun that way. Okay, so even if you are investigating with other people, um, uh, you're going to need equipment. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the equipment of a ghost hunter and how you can get started. Now, we all know that this hobby is extremely expensive. Um, as you go further and further, you want better and better equipment, but it's not something that is really needed. There's a couple of things that you should have that are pretty inexpensive and you can get started. Okay, so the most important thing you should have is a digital voice recorder. Now, nowadays, you don't need to go and buy a regular digital voice recorder, though I highly recommend it. You have one on your cell phone. And I've had really good luck picking up EVP on my cell phone. On my cell phone digital recorder. You go into apps, put in recorder, and see what you can find. Now, what I've heard about this, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I do it anyways just to be safe. You turn off like your phone service or your wireless service or your cell service to your phone when you're recording, so you don't pick up stray transmissions. Now, any of you tech guys out there, because I am not one of them, want to tell me if this is the case? I mean, is this kind of like putting your recorder in a Faraday cage or something? See, I don't know, but I heard that that's what you do. You turn off your put it in airplane mode. You put it in airplane mode, and then you record that way. So that is a way you could do it, or um, you could spend about $60 for an Olympus digital recorder. That's what I always used. It's a tiny little digital recorder. It does all the things that a digital recorder is supposed to do, but you can also plug it into your computer in order to hook it up to Audacity and review your evidence. So that's what I would do. If you have the cash, drop $60 for an Olympus digital recorder. As for EMF meters, well, the best way to get started, it's not the funnest way to get started, but the best way to get started is to buy yourself a cell sensor for only $20. That way you'll be able to do baseline readings and such as that. But I also, just for the fun of it, and it's mostly because I work with it a lot, but I highly recommend it. If you have the money to drop, then buy yourself a K2 meter for $50 on Amazon. Why should you do that? Because it's a great tool. I mean, you can't okay, if you're videotaping a K2 meter and it starts blinking, you really can't say that's evidence. But if you have your K2 meter blinking when you're getting EVP, then that's something. And the K2 meter is just fun. You take your K2 meter, you put it in front of you, and you ask it questions like you would at EVP. Like you would ask, are you a boy or a girl? If you're a boy, flash 2 times. And if it flashes 2 times, then you ask again. It's like, are you a boy? Flash once. And if you flash once, then you probably have something. And you go through that way, methodically asking questions. And this is why the K2 is so interesting, because the K2 is not just a EMF meter. It's also a communication device. So when you have those $50, and this is the part of the paranormal you're interested in, then go and pick up that K2 meter. All right, so you finally get to your location, and the first thing that we always did, and it's the smart and professional thing to do, is to do something we call a baseline reading. Now, the paranormal, the paranorm. My apologies. The the baseline reading is basically used in order to check and see that when you start picking up EMF, that it's not coming from something mundane. Because here's the thing about EMF is that everything gives off EMF. So a lot of times when you're getting those 1.2s or 2.2 readings, you might be picking up your refrigerator. So this is why we do baseline. So I walk into a house and I go into the kitchen. I take my cell sensor out and I go all around the kitchen to anything that is plugged in. Let's say that I get the refrigerator. I put the cell sensor on the refrigerator. I take my little book that I have with me, and then I put in 1.5 because the cell sensor is showing 1.5. Okay, so then I go to the microwave and I do the same thing. I do this to every appliance in the kitchen. And then I also get a baseline of what the whole room is. Now, because ghost hunting is not a fast hobby and can be quite boring, I go to every single room in the house and I do baseline. Now, once I get baseline done, then I can do this. I can, when I'm looking at EMF and we turn off all the lights and stuff, and I get something in the middle of the room that's like a 3.5, and that wasn't there before, then we start thinking that it might be something. Then we set up our EVPs and such and so forth. And so how do we do EVP? Yeah, perfect segue. Well, you take your digital recorder or your cell phone, you put it down on the ground or on a piece of furniture or whatever. You walk away from it a little bit and you start asking questions. Now, if you have a K2 meter, you want to put that K2 meter right next to the digital recorder, because if you have the K2 meter, you're filming the K2 meter with a video camera, or you have cameras that are shooting the K2 meter. So when you're asking your questions for the EVP, are you a man or a woman? And you can say like blink twice or blink once. Then you might actually get EVP on your thing, and you might also get the blinking lights from well from the K2 meter. Okay, so we have finally set up. We have our K2 meter set up. We have our our ITC device or digital recorder put on the floor. And now we want to talk to spirits. So how do we go about this? Well, I can't stress enough that you're going to get better evidence if you're polite to these things. Now, remember, whether it's true or not, these things act like they're human beings. So the best way to communicate with them is to contact them like they're people. So let's say that old Aunt Martha is haunting the Jenkins estate. We've just been brought in to talk to old Aunt Martha and see why she's rattling the curtains. So I would sit down with all. I like to do lights out investigations. I know a lot of people don't. I'll do investigations in lights out or lights on. I'm sensitive, and it helps me get into that frame of mind where it's more quiet, and I can gain those kind of those that information that a spirit would give. Anyway, so I'm sitting down with Aunt Martha, and I ask, "Is your name Martha?" And then I wait 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Why are you rattling the curtains? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Why are you still here? And then you wait 10 seconds again. And you do questions like that. 10 seconds. And then you ask another question, 10 seconds. Now, if you're using your K2 meter, you might want to throw in blink twice or blink once if you are male, blink twice if you're female. Basically, that's how you do an EVP session. Now, there are other things we can do, and often on investigations, I'll use what is known as trigger objects. A trigger object is some kind of object that will get the spirit to basically perform for you. It doesn't work all the time, but with certain spirits, it's very helpful. Let's say that little Timmy was 10 years old and he died in a car accident, and he is now haunting his parents' house. Okay, so little Timmy loved his Hot Wheels cars. So to contact little Timmy, we get a bunch of Hot Wheels cars and we start playing with them as we would a child. This gets Timmy involved. And then we ask Timmy if he wants to play. And while we're doing that, we have the K2 meter in front of us and such and so forth. And we'll ask questions of the K2 meter like, Timmy, are you here? If you're here, blink once or twice. Blink once if you're here, Timmy. And if it blinks, and say, blink twice if you're here, Timmy. And then you ask other questions. You do the EVP session. The thing with trigger objects is that there are many different kinds you can use. You can do full recreations of the events that turn people into spirits. I've known people who've done that. And I have to admit that it works. If you're dealing with, I used to work in a haunted hospital, used to train there quite a bit. I didn't work there, but my paranormal investigator buddies did work there. And you could pretend you're a doctor. You can put on scrubs. You can, anything that would keep the spirit comfortable or put them in a state where it's something that they recognize. You can probably get good information out of them. This is called a trigger object. So you have done this. You have been investigating. Actually, before we get to that, let's do this. So you're investigating a house. You have probably about 6 people. You set up what is called base camp. Now, what is base camp? Well, base camp, usually you put it in a living room or something. It's where if you have cameras, like 6 or 7 cameras, uh, you put the monitor in which those cameras are looking at in base camp. You usually have your tech guy looking at your cameras, so it's better to have somebody with him. And that brings me up to a very important thing, is that you never do this alone. You are always with a partner. You never go out of eye shot of someone when you're investigating. And there are many reasons for this, because the most important thing is that if someone gets hurt, you need to have someone with you who can help you. If you're exploring some old forgotten building or you're in a mine somewhere, then it's pretty good to have a partner just in case you hurt yourself. But there's another reason, and for an investigator, for a paranormal investigator, this is very important. You see, when we are on investigations, especially when we are acting as professionals, we can't show fear. This is especially important when you're working with a client. You have to pretend that you're not afraid. And the thing is, if you're investigating with a partner, no matter if a severed head materializes in front of you, which has been known to happen, you have your partner there, and that partner is going to keep you grounded. See, you will find that you're rarely going to run from something that jumps out at you if you have your trusty partner there with you, because your partner is going to keep you so you're not afraid, and that's going to just make you a better investigator. So never, ever, ever investigate alone. That's one of the most important things. So you set up base camp, you're doing base camp. If you have about 6 investigators, you should probably mix up your investigators. Like, have different people look at base camp so other people can go out. This is more if you're leading an investigation. Make sure everyone gets a chance to investigate, unless they don't want to. I mean, sometimes some of the tech guys, they just love sitting in front of their monitors and looking at dust fly by. But if they want to go out and investigate, then take their place, watch the monitor while they do their thing, and basically rotate every like few hours or even a half an hour, depending on how many people you have. That way, everyone gets to investigate. But this, pretty much that's for if you're leading an investigation. However, okay, so you finally get to the point where the investigation is over, and you're trying to strip down the cameras and all of that. You're putting the equipment away. There's something that's very important that you have to do before you go home for evidence review. Now, one of the worst things that can happen to us is we get followed. Now, often when you get followed, it stays around for probably 2 days and goes away. I mean, most ghosts are not harmful. I would say probably 80% to 90% are completely harmless. However, there's still that 10%, so you want to protect yourself. Now, if you're religious, you can use prayer. If you're spiritual, you can use shielding. You know what you're going to do. But I have found, in order to not get followed, I have found that there's a technique that works really well. Everyone gets in a circle, all your investigators, all your 6 investigators, and you hold hands. And then you say, while concentrating on it, no spirit can follow me back. And then you break, and then you go home. And the thing about spirits is that this is all about will, okay? If your will is stronger than the spirit, you can defeat the spirit. This becomes more important once you're cleansing houses and stuff, but we're not going to get into that today. But it's the same thing if you're trying to get a spirit to stay in his location. You got to be firm, and you got to use your willpower. And it's your willpower which will keep that spirit away. So that's a very important thing that I have always done with my teammates. And you need to have some kind of ritual like that in order to continue, in order to keep spirits from following you home. I can't stress that enough. Come up with something. Seriously. Okay, so now you're home. And the hardest part of being a paranormal investigator is basically is we call evidence review. Really, it's boring. I can't tell you enough. Evidence review is very boring, especially if you have not caught anything. You're probably going to do 3 to 4 hours of evidence review. So I suggest to you, um, you take your thing, put it into your computer, put on your headphones, and just start listening. Now, sometimes I'll go online in something, but really you should just concentrate on what you're hearing, the white noise, because an EVP can be anywhere at any time. Now, I have a special technique that I do, and I think I do this because I am sensitive and I am psychic. But I will, when I first do this, I will bounce around to probably maybe 4 places around the tape and then listen to about 10 minutes of that. And I have had really good success doing that. But even after I do that, I go back and I listen to the whole thing because I don't want to miss anything. With video, let's say that you have your video cameras, you get to do the same thing, except you might be looking at about 6 hours of footage. So basically, you keep it on. Most of the time, it's better to bring a friend over, and just to keep you from being bored. I used to do evidence review with my team Sparks with my friend Steve, and we would watch it and we would kind of joke about it and try to keep ourselves from being bored. So that we could get through that and look at every piece of lint, every piece of dust, every boring shadow that there is. But unfortunately, for paranormal investigators, you gotta do this. This is how you're gonna pick up evidence. This is how you're gonna show a client if their place is haunted. You have to do the boring drudge work, because though this is a fun hobby, it's a lot of work, man. And there's a lot that goes into it, and I've only scratched the surface of it. So put in your grunt work, listen to all of your audio, watch all of your video, get to know what is a bug, get to know what is dust, get to know what is boring shadows or video artifacts or whatever, because you're going to be seeing a lot of them. But man, once you see that first figure that can't be a video artifact, that is not dust, that is not anything that can be explained, then it's all worth it. Once you get that first EVP, that voice asking you to help them, that voice that is literally answering your questions on your digital recorder, then it's all worth it. It's boring until you get evidence, and then it's exciting, man. It is so exciting. So that is a brief sketch on how you get to start investigating. There's a lot of other things we can talk about. There's a lot of like advanced techniques. We can talk more about trigger objects. We can talk about a lot of things. But next time on the show, we may talk a little bit about this, but I'm going to have a guest, and this will be our first guest. And if there are any questions you want to ask me or the guest after we do the show, or after you hear her talk, then you can contact me, and the next time I have her on, then I'll ask her. So she's going to be on probably a few times. This is a shout out to all of my friends who are members of USIP. I would absolutely love to interview you guys and we can go through war stories. So contact me as soon as possible. Anyways, that is Beyond the Beyond for tonight. I hope you enjoyed what I showed you. Uh, this is what our show is basically going to be about 30 minutes of of unexplained phenomena. And hopefully, this was entertaining and educational. And I will talk to you later. Goodbye.